When the dryer won't start in any of the cycles that you try it on, the first thing that you need to check is the voltage coming from the wall outlet to the dryer. Let me show you the safest and easiest way to check the voltages coming from the wall outlet. You will need an inexpensive multimeter like this one and a set of insulated alligator clips for the test probes. Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet. Remove the terminal block cover. Set your multimeter to read higher than 120 AC volts. Connect the test probes with the alligator clips between the terminal with the black wire on the top and the terminal with the white wire on the middle, L1 and N, like this. Connect the dryer to the wall outlet and don't touch the dryer, just take a reading. If the reading is between 100 and 130 volts AC, the voltage is okay. If the reading is below 90 volts AC, the problem could be a blown fuse, a trip circuit breaker, a bad wall outlet, or a bad power cord. After you're done checking the voltages, disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet and make sure that you reinstall the terminal block cover, okay? Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet. You will need to use a multimeter to check and see if electricity could flow from the power cord to the terminal block. Remove the terminal block cover plate. Set your multimeter on the lower scale to read ohms. Take a reading between the terminal with the white wire on the terminal block and the terminal that looks like a reverse L on the cord plug. The reading should be close to 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the cord is bad and you need to replace it. Use a piece of wire, a jumper wire, or a small screwdriver to jump the two flat terminals on the power cord like this. You need to make sure that you have a good connection between the two flat terminals. When you bypass the two flat terminals on the cord plug, you make in two lines into one and it's easier to check for continuity. Then take a reading between the terminals with the black wire and the red wire on the terminal block. The reading should be close to 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the cord is bad and you need to replace it. Make sure that the dryer is disconnected from the wall outlet before proceeding. Loosen up the holding clamp screws, but don't take them out. Remove the terminal block cover plate. Loosen up the 3 nuts that are holding the cord to the terminal block. Grab the power cord and pull it right out. When you install the new cord, make sure that the wire on the center of the cord connects to the terminal with the white wire on the center terminal on the terminal block. Stick the new cord through the holding clamp like this. Grab the center wire with a needle nose pliers, pull it, and set it in place on the terminal block, then tighten the holding nut. Grab the other wire and set it on the bottom terminal with the red wire and tighten the holding nut. Grab the last wire, set it in place on the top terminal with the black wire and tighten the holding nut. Screw in the 2 clamp screws to hold the cord in place. And install the terminal block cover plate. That was the way to replace a bad 3-prongs cord. Make sure that the dryer is disconnected from the wall outlet before proceeding. Loosen up the screws on the cord holding clamp. But don't take them out. Remove the terminal block cover plate. Remove the 3 nuts that are connecting the cord to the terminal block. Grab the cord and pull it right out. Stick the 4-prong cords through the holding clamp and pull the wires until they reach the terminal block. Connect the red wire to the bottom terminal on the terminal block with the red wire on it. Connect the white wire to the middle terminal with the white wire on it. Connect the black wire to the top terminal with the black wire on it. Connect the green ground wire to the cabinet like this. Double check to make sure that you put it right. Black wire to black wire on the top terminal, white wire to white wire on the middle terminal, and red wire to red wire on the bottom terminal, and the green wire should be connected to the cabinet. Tighten the screws on the cord holding clamp. And install the terminal block cover plate. That was a way to replace a 3-prongs cord with a 4-prongs cord. Let me show you how to check the thermal fuse without using a multimeter. Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet and open the top panel. The thermal fuse is located in this area on the heater box. Disconnect the wires from the thermal fuse. Squeeze the terminals a little bit with a needle nose pliers like this. Hook the 2 terminals like this and make sure that the connection is tight. Insulate the connection with electrical tape to prevent any short circuits. Put the wires out of the way like this. Make sure they don't touch any moving parts. Go ahead and close the top panel. Connect the dryer to the wall outlet. Try the dryer to see if it works now. If the dryer starts and seems to be running normal, you will need to replace the thermal fuse and the safety thermostat. Warning! You could only bypass the thermal fuse for testing purposes only. Do not use the dryer to dry clothes with a bypass thermal fuse. It's not safe and you could burn the house down. If the thermal fuse is bad, just replace it with a new one. With the top panel opened and the dryer disconnected from the wall outlet, let me show you how to replace the thermal fuse. Remove the heating element holding screw. You will need to push the bracket up to unhook it from the heater box. Like this. Then you could take it out. Go ahead and remove the bad thermal fuse on the bracket. Be careful when you stick your hand in so you don't cut yourself with a screw or a sharp edge. The replacement kit comes with a safety thermostat, a gas dryer thermal fuse, and an electric dryer thermal fuse. The thermal fuse for the electric dryer has a pink dot on it and it reads L300F on the side of it. Let me show you a little trick on how to mount the thermal fuse on the bracket. Put the thermal fuse on the bracket, bend these 2 ends. This way the thermal fuse will stay in position and it'll be easier for you to mount it on the heater box. This is the way that the thermal fuse bracket hooks into the heater box. And this is the way that the heating element holding screw holds the bracket in place. Connect the two wires to the thermal fuse. It doesn't matter which wire connect to which terminal. Grabbing the thermal fuse bracket with a needle nose plier will make it easier to install it. Set the thermal fuse holding bracket on the heater box. Make sure that it hooks good and it stays in place. And install the heating element holding screw. Make sure that the screw is holding the thermal fuse bracket in place. Remove the old safety thermostat and install the new one that came with the kit. It doesn't matter which wire connect to which terminal. Make sure that the safety thermostat have not been pushed down too close to the heating element. If it is, bring it out a little bit like this. Lower the top panel and make sure that it closes good. That was the easier way to check the thermal fuse and replace it. Now before you could use the dryer, you need to do something else that I'm going to show you next. Connect the dryer to the wall outlet. Go to the outside and tape a piece of paper towel to the dryer exhaust air vent like this. Set the temperature switch to air fluff so the dryer will not be heating while you check in the airflow to the outside. Turn the dryer on and go outside. If the airflow is nice and strong, then you should be all set. You're ready to use the dryer. If the airflow is lazy, it's not moving strong, you will need to check for a kink or clog exhaust hose or for a lint filter full of lint. You will need to make sure that the airflow to the outside of the house from the dryer is strong or the thermal fuse will blow again soon. So take care of that, okay? Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet and open the top panel. To be able to move the front panel forward a little bit, you will need to remove this screw and this other screw. After removing the screws, pull the front panel forward a little bit and let it hang by the door switch wires. Set your multimeter on the lower scale to read ohms. Disconnect the white wire from the terminal marked COM on the door switch. With the door on the dryer closed, take a reading between these two terminals on the switch. The reading should be close to 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the door switch is bad and you will need to replace it. Keep the door on the dryer closed to replace a bad door switch. Use a small screwdriver to disengage the switch from the holding bracket, like this. Then grab the switch and pull it straight out. Disengage this wire holding clip from the front panel. Transfer the wires from the bad switch to the new switch one by one. Set the new switch on the bracket. Make sure that the button goes through the hole. Push it down and make sure that the clips are holding the switch in place like this. Screw in the two front panel holding screws. Lower the top panel and align it. Then push down until it snaps in place. That was a way to check and replace the door switch. Set up the timer on the cycle that you always use. Remove these 3 screws on the top and open the controls panel. The push to start switch in this dryer is inside of the timer. So let me show you how to check it out to find out if it's good or bad. Disconnect these wires from the terminal marked S on the timer. Set your multimeter on the lower scale to read ohms. Push in the timer knob and hold it in that position until you complete the test. Take a reading between the M and S terminals on the timer while you're pushing in the timer knob. If the reading is close to 0 ohms, then the push to start switch on the timer is good. If the reading is infinity, the push to start switch on the timer is bad and you will need to replace the complete timer assembly. Before you go replacing the timer, inspect the knob. Remove this cap and check it out. If it's broken like this one, that could be the reason why the dryer won't start when you push the push to start button. Replace the knob and try the dryer before replacing the timer, okay? With the timer set up on the cycle that you always use, remove this black wire from the terminal marked L on the timer. Set your multimeter on the lower scale to read ohms. Take a reading between the terminals marked M and L on the timer like this. If the reading is close to 0 ohms, the contacts inside of the timer are good. If the reading is infinity, the timer is bad and you will need to replace the complete timer assembly. Remove the knob by grabbing it and pulling it straight out. Remove the 2 timer holding screws. Remove these 3 screws to open the controls panel. And open the controls panel. Leave the wires attached to the bad timer. Set the new timer in place and screw in the 2 holding screws. Transfer the wires from the bad timer to the new timer. This way you will minimize the chance of putting a wire on the wrong terminal on the new timer. Now all you have to do is close the controls panel, screw in the holding screws, and install the knob. That was a way to check and replace the timer when the dryer is not starting. To be able to check the motor, you will need to make a test cord like this one. To make a test cord, all you need is an extension cord and 2 insulated alligator clips. Attach the alligator clip to the extension cord and you're ready to test the motor. Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet before proceeding. Open the top panel using a potty knife like this. Find the door switch on the front panel and disconnect the white wire from the NO terminal on the switch. Grab the white wire and pull it out. Wrap a piece of cardboard around the wire like this and set it on top of the front panel. Lower the top panel on top of it. The piece of cardboard will protect the wire, plus it will keep the wire in place like this. Attach one of the test cord alligator clips to this wire. Then put some electrical tape to insulate the connection. Remove these 3 wires to open the controls panel. Then open the controls panel. Find the S terminal on the timer and attach the other test cord alligator clip on it, like this. Make sure that the alligator clip is connected good and it's not going to fall off. Open the door on the dryer so you could observe the drum. Connect the test cord to the wall outlet. If the motor sounds like this, then clicks off, or it has a hard time running, the motor is bad and you will need to replace it. If the motor starts okay, let it run for about 30 or 40 minutes. Make sure everybody stays away from the dryer while the dryer is running like this. I don't want nobody getting hurt. Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet for a minute. Connect the test cord to the wall outlet again. If the motor starts okay, no problem, then the motor should be okay. Disconnect the test cord from the wall outlet. That was a way to check the motor with a homemade test cord. Disconnect the dryer from the wall outlet and take the dryer apart. Remove all the screws from the blower cover. Remove the blower cover and let it hang on the wires from the operating thermostat. To remove the blower wheel, you will need to remove the C-ring, and you will need to use a pair of pliers like this. Go ahead and remove the C-ring. Use a pair of pliers to remove this compression clamp and remove the blower. Remove this other C-ring. Grab the idle pulley, lift it up a little bit, clear the pin, bring it down, remove the spring, and take the complete assembly out. Disconnect the wire harness from the motor like this. Use a flat screwdriver to remove the motor holding clamp like this. Grab the bad motor with 2 hands, turn it like this to unlock it from the blower wheel housing, and take it right out. To install the new motor, set it up in place like this. Make sure it's all the way in, then give it a turn to the left to lock the motor in place like this. To install the motor clamp, hook it up on one side, set it in place and push down until it snaps in place. Connect the motor wire harness. Make sure you push it all the way in to get a good connection. To install the idle pulley, you need to make sure that the rod goes through this hole and then it goes through the hole on the blower housing like this. Then you pull it out a little bit to clear the pin, hook up the spring, pull it out again, clear the pin, and then bring it right up, and that's the way you put it on. Install the first C-ring. This C-ring will stop the blower from moving too far out and hitting the blower housing. Now install the blower wheel. Install the compression clamp using a pair of pliers and use 2 hands on it. Install the other C-ring. Set the blower cover in place and screw in all the holding screws. That was a way to replace a bad motor.